Welcome to the Radiant Mom Rising, the podcast that's all about celebrating and empowering the incredible hardworking mothers out there. I'm your host, Mary Dibble. I'm on a mission to equip you with the tools, strategies, and inspiration you need to conquer the challenges of motherhood and life, all while embracing your radiant self. Join us each week for amazing guest interviews, relatable stories, and a whole lot of fun. We're here to create a vibrant, supportive community where we can be our authentic selves, where no one feels alone, and where we uplift and cheer each other on along this incredible journey of motherhood. So, fellow Radiant Moms, get ready to rise, shine, and conquer the world. Let's grow together, laugh together, and make every week a celebration of the powerful, radiant moms we are. This is Radiant Mom Rising, and you're part of a community where your brilliance shines through. Are you ready to rise with us? Let's get started. Welcome to the inaugural episode of Radiant Mom Rising. I'm Mary Dibble, your host, a devoted mom of three, loving wife, and life and success coach. Join me on this transformative journey as I share my personal struggles, triumphs, and the driving force behind this podcast. Radiant Mom Rising is dedicated to all hardworking moms who've lost themselves in self-sacrifice. Together, we'll reignite your self-belief and embark on a thrilling pursuit of dreams. Let's rise, embrace our authentic selves, and shine brighter than ever before. Stay tuned for a wave of inspiration and empowerment. Hello and welcome to the Radiant Mom Rising podcast. I'm your host, Mary Dibble, and I'm just so excited to be here with you all. This is my first official episode. I want you all to get to know me better. I can't wait to get to know my listeners better and for you to join me on this amazing journey. I am 36 years old. I'm a mom of three. I am a happily married woman who is also a life and success coach. I empower hardworking moms to pursue their aspirations, purpose, and authenticity. I believe in us moms to, love ourselves, to stop putting ourselves on the back burner. We self-sacrifice so much of ourselves. We're amazing. We work so hard. We do so much. But at the end of the day, so many of us forget to do for us, to love ourselves, to check on ourselves, to go after our dreams. And I am all about supporting and encouraging you to believe in yourself, to follow your dreams, to just go after it. And this journey, since I made that decision, has been incredible. The doors of opportunities that happen when you make that decision to change your life for you and to do what you want is beautiful. So I invite you to join me on my journey and to let us all encourage one another, support one another, grow with each other. I'm going to be interviewing some amazing women and have them on the show who will share their journeys. I want you to know you're not alone and you don't have to be alone. That's something that really motivated me to do this podcast and to pursue my life coaching business, because I felt so alone so many times throughout my life. I felt like friends who I thought would always be there abandoned me. I felt like guys who I thought loved me abandoned me. I've always dealt with abandonment. My own dad wanted nothing to do with me. So of course, that was part of my fears that built up over time and kept me from really being me, from really living life and taking chances. And I didn't really start living until I recognized that and did something about it and decided that I'm not going to let that define who I am. I'm not going to let my past define who I am. I'm going to go after my dreams and make my life what I want it. So that's where I'm at, and I love it. I'm excited for it. I am excited to bring you along, to share with you, guide you, however I can support you on your journey. I hope to bring some inspiration to you. I hope to bring some fun, laughter, tears if it comes down to it, whatever comes up, because at the end of the day, this is real life. So many of us, we put such expectations and put so many people on pedestals, and we tend to compare ourselves or feel like we're in competition. And it's like, no, stop that. We're all here to find love, to find happiness or success, whatever that means for us. that's what we're here to find. And that's what we deserve. And I hope to help in any way guide you to that, because what I might find to mean success or to mean love or to mean happiness for me is not going to be the same for you. And I think that's what's beautiful about us. We all have our differences. We all have our unique beautifulness to us. And that's what I want you to discover about yourselves, your lives, and then really find that clarity of what you want for your life and then go after it. And that's not easy for everyone to do, of course. I mean, it took me time in my life to really tune into who I really am. And so with this, I hope to bring you the strategies, the stories, and most importantly, the community, the support of knowing you don't have to go through life alone on your journeys. It's okay to have that support. And for those of us who don't get the support from family and friends, or who we think we want it from, well, that's okay, because I'm telling you, when you put yourself out there, when you allow yourself to go after what you want, you start attracting the right people who will support you, who will have your back, and will love you for you. So this episode, I wanted to let you get to know me a little bit. I originally was born in Bronx, New York, but we moved away when I was only 6 months old. I had an older sister who's 18 months older than me. My mom was from Trinidad. My dad was from Puerto Rico. We moved to Killeen, Texas, because he was stationed at the time he was in the military. But when I was 3 years old, they ended up getting a divorce, which was a good thing. And that in itself was a scary time. I remember the day that things happened, being on the couch with my sister, watching TV. And the next thing I know, I turn around to see my dad holding a knife to my mom's throat while she's on the phone, and having this sense of panic, like, what's happening? And I just didn't want him to hurt my mom. So I thought, well, maybe I'll distract him. I remember talking to him like, hey, Poppy, there's something on the TV. I want that for Christmas. And just trying to talk to him so he wouldn't focus on my mom. I was just scared. I didn't know what else to do. And it wasn't long after that, the cops showed up and arrested him and took him away. And they ended up divorcing after that. And there's a lot to that story that I didn't know, of course, at the time. And I've learned over time. But overall, my dad was never really there for me. I don't really even consider him my dad, because he was so in and out, but he just didn't really love me. He didn't care enough to love me and be there for me. And that's okay. It took me a long time to move past that, but I have, and I love it, because for so long I did allow that to dictate my behaviors, to define me. And it's quite beautiful when you get on the other side. So anyways, my mom ended up being a single mom. I absolutely love Texas. The elementary school I was in tap dancing, I was in acting and chorus. I was in so many things. It was such a great school, and things didn't end up working out. Actually, my mom ended up meeting a guy who could try to convince her to move to Mississippi with him. And she listened, and she took us out of that school. And I was absolutely devastated, because she actually took us out right before one of our big performances. And it was very devastating for me. That really affected me. I feel like that was one of those moments in my past where some of my programming began, of starting something and not finishing it. And I'll get into that another time. So anyways, we tried to move to Mississippi for a little bit. That didn't work out. We ended up going to Georgia to live with family. And for me, that was an exciting time, only because I had a cousin who I was very close with that I got to live with for a little bit. And it was nice being close with her. But that didn't end up working out, because it was a bad situation. And honestly, I'm glad, because the school that they had there I did not like it. It was not a good school. So somehow or another, my mom had made a friend in Texas who happened to be from a place called Wilkesboro, North Carolina. And so we ended up moving there. And I was in the 3rd grade by the time we got there and settled. And things just changed for me. I became very shy, very insecure in myself. And that's kind of where things started going downhill for me. I made my friends over time, but I never really liked who I was. I always was critical. I felt horrible about myself. I always felt like I was ugly compared to all the other girls. I wished I was white. I wanted to be a white girl so bad. looking back now, it's kind of silly, but it was so real for me. I had an identity issue. I did not accept me for who I was. And therefore, I built this low self-esteem. I ended up having eating disorders. I started drinking at the age of 11. And it wasn't long after that that I lost my virginity when I was only 13 years old by being pressured by a guy at the time who I was dating. And it was a very horrible experience. So no surprise after that, I ended up ending that. And then after drinking as long as I did, I started doing other stuff. I got into pain pills, which was a very bad thing. By the time I was 15 years old, I was addicted to Oxycontin 80s. And it was around that time too that a 30-year-old man had pressured me into sex. So you can imagine that at that point in my life, as young as I was, as underdeveloped as I was, I just was a mess. I was not a good person. I was a wild teen. I was very rebellious. My mom, as much as she loved me and tried, I think my mom longed to be my friend, that she didn't know how to parent me because I was so out of control. But it's because I was miserable. I hated life. I was depressed, slightly suicidal. I hated me. I was always so critical, and it was rough. And then not too long after that, we got evicted out of her home, and where my mom and my sister had a place to go. A friend of mine at first offered to let me live with them, but that was a nightmare. Her parents were so cruel to me behind closed doors. It was a scary, uncomfortable situation, although I loved her to death. And I know she wanted the best for me. I know she wanted me there. It got to the point where it got so ugly, I had to leave. And my life from there just went even more downhill. I had a job at McDonald's. That was my very first job. And I worked. However, I was just wild because I was having to live from place to place to place. And at my job, I met a guy and started dating him. And, we were just not good for each other. I mean, when you are in that place where you're doing the drugs and you meet someone else who's like that, it's not going to be a good outcome, no matter how much you think you care about that person. At one point, I even had to live with him, and then he breaks up with me. So I had to live with him and his family while we weren't even together. And it was devastating. I remember so many times just feeling like, oh my God, why am I even here? I hated my life. I hated everything. I wanted to die. I felt like there was no way out. There was no other side to this. And I ended up moving out at the time, someone I thought was my friend, into her trailer, and thought we could be roommates. But then she ended up introducing me to crack. And at this point, I had done cocaine a little bit, but I'd never really tried crack. But then I ended up doing crack and got hooked on that. No surprise. And that ended up in a disaster where in the end, I got kicked out because she had lied. It was her aunt's place, and she had lied to her aunt, tried to blame me for things that she had been doing. And I ended up getting thrown out. It ended up being the best thing that ever happened to me. And that story alone is so powerful. And what happened that led up to that I will share one day, but not right now. Because there's a lot of things that I went through, a lot of things that happened to me during that time of my drug world and going from place to place that I've never really even shared with a lot of people. And I will one day. Actually, have thought about even writing a book about it, because I think that would be inspirational to see, golly, the things that can happen to you and that you can go through. It doesn't matter, because if you decide to change your life, you can change it. You can make a different outcome. So I ended up trying to go back to my mom and my sister, and they were like, nope, we're not taking you in. You either go to rehab or, well, my sister had a best friend at the time whose parents had a house that they called the Holy Way. And she's like, maybe they'll let you come and stay, but you're going to have to completely straighten up. You're not going to be able to do drugs there. You're not going to be able to even smoke cigarettes or do anything there. And at the time, I was like, I'm not going to rehab. So I was like, screw it. Why not? It's a place to crash. I can stay there. They usually allow you to come for like 2 weeks for a test run. So I went. 3 days into that, God got me. I had never really grown up in church, and the little bit of experience I had with church, I hated because I just didn't like the experience of it. So meeting these people, the father, ended up sharing how he had once been big on a drug addict and how he was saved, and he spent the rest of his life serving God. And even his wife, she had had drinking problems in her past, and she too was saved, and how they lived their lives for God. So it was cool because I'm like, okay, I'm around these people who kind of understand where I'm at, and they're not judgmental, which is something I wasn't used to. And so that when they had a worship one night, I remember sitting there kind of feeling a little awkward because I'd never experienced anything like this. And the next thing I know, the daughter comes and sits next to me, and she just whispers in my ear that God wanted you to know that he will take it all away if you let him, that he loves you and you don't have to hide anymore. And I just lost it. I absolutely lost it in that moment. And I ended up giving my life to him, and he did. He took it all my withdrawal symptoms gone. No more shakes, no more cravings. I quit smoking. I quit everything cold turkey. And it was amazing. And so it was supposed to be 2 weeks, ended up being 6 months of my life. And I was 18 years old at that point. I already became such a different person in that moment, in that time frame. However, after leaving the Holy Way, I ended up meeting a guy who ended up getting me back on drugs and ended up being physically abusive to me. It was a horrible time. It was a very scary time of my life. I didn't know if I'd ever get away, if I'd ever escape, because that's what led him to first hit me, was when I first tried to break up with him one night. And I was driving 45 miles per hour. He's drunk, trying to get us home or to his place. At the time, we weren't living together. Of course, we were newly dating. And he ended up punching and busting my windshield, and then turning around and just literally punched me as hard as he could in the eye as I'm driving. And then, if that wasn't bad enough, he did it again. And I was terrified. I don't even know how I did not black out in that moment of driving, but I was able to stay conscious. It was scary. I didn't expect it because he had never really been that way up until that point. So I, of course, fell into that trap of feeling like I can't leave him because he was very dangerous. He was very mean, and living with him was a nightmare. We ended up, God, it was a crazy time in my life that I'm not going to go into with you right now. But all I can say is that one day, again, the Lord God, he opened a door. I'll never forget. I showed up home and he happened to not be there. I had no idea where he was, when he'd come home. It was very scary. And I heard, get out now. Like, I heard it in my everything, in my core. I heard it. And I did. I quickly ran, and it was scary. I was running back and forth through the window, just making sure he's not showing up. And I just packed my stuff. I got my animals. I climbed in the car, and then I showed up at my sister's job, and I said, please take me in. I want to get away. I'm done. And luckily, of course, he realized everything happened. He tried his best to apologize and to get me to come back. It's crazy how things work out. So he ended up going to prison because he didn't show up for a court appearance, but it worked out. It was beautiful. He went off to prison after that. I made that choice to leave him. I ended up living with my cousin and my sister at the time, who were living together. And next thing I know, I ended up moving to Morganton. My mom had finally got herself established here in Morganton. And then from there, I got a job working at Red Lobster. This is where I met my firstborn's father. And it was one of those, physical attractions. We kind of were just head over heels at first and always with each other, whatever. But he also was kind of a partier. And don't get me wrong, I did a little bit of drinking at that point. I was trying to work on myself to get away. At that point, I was like, I'm never doing cocaine. I'm never doing pills again. I'm done. Didn't mind drinking a little bit because I had more control of that than anything else. Well, when I first met my firstborn's father, I thought everything was great, everything was good. And then I realized he was on pain pills. And that kind of was a big issue with us and a problem we had. For a minute there, he had moments where he acted like he was going to quit and actually do good in his life, but then he would always fall again. And then I got pregnant not too long after us being together. And he ended it with me because I would not abort the baby. And it's funny because there was a time that I remember saying that, oh, if I ever get pregnant, I'll just have an abortion because I didn't like kids. I didn't want kids. But when I found out in that moment that I had a living being, a child inside of me, again, I heard the voice, please don't abort this child. And I lost it. I remember crying my eyes out, being so scared. I'm 19 years old. I'm like, what is happening? My life has been so crappy up to this point. I've been working so hard back and forth all over the place. And I was like, nope, I'm not doing it. I had something inside of me was like, I can't. It's just so different when I know there's a living being inside of me. So yeah, he ended up leaving me. And then about a week later, started dating a girl we worked with. So for 8 months of my pregnancy, I had to work with him and his new girlfriend, and they loved rubbing it in my face. He was horrible to me. He sometimes would tell me I should just kill myself. He hated me until, of course, she left him, because what do you expect? He came back after they broke up. And at first I was in the mindset of, well, I've always wanted a family. I don't want to go through the same experience like my mom and my dad, where I'd be a single mom and blah, blah, blah. I want my kids to have a dad to grow up with. So no surprise, I took him back and we tried. And he actually was even there when JJ was born. That's, my nickname of my first son. His name is Josiah. Oh my God. Let me tell you, it was a hard experience having to work while you're pregnant with somebody that at the time I thought I was in love with him. I wanted so bad for it to work, but having to work with him and his girlfriend and be professional and not show my feelings and just be okay with it. It was very challenging. I'll tell you, there were many times that I went in the bathroom and cried my eyes out, but I was very blessed at the time to have some good friends there who were my support and my comfort through it all. So I will always be forever grateful to them. And anyways, after JJ was born, at first everything seemed like it could be good. He was going to the methadone clinic. He was trying to get clean or whatnot. But then an old friend of his came back in his life and practically got him right back on that same drug path. And from that moment on, he decided he was going to disown JJ, his son. And he left me again and started dating another girl we worked with. So this time, here I am raising a baby by myself and seeing him with another girl again, somebody different. It was at a point where I finally was like, I've had enough. And thank the good Lord, another opportunity happened, and they allowed me to transfer to Olive Garden because, Darden restaurants are all within the same branch. And the owner of Red Lobster knew what I was dealing with, and he knew how terrible it was for me. So he offered to help transfer me and get me out of there for my sake. And it was awesome. It was such a great time. Around that time, too, I met a girl. Well, we had been friends anyways, and she had been trying to convince me to go to church. And I was very resistant to that. But finally, when I moved to the new place, I decided to give it a chance. And I did love this church. It was a non-denomination and it was very down to earth. They played awesome music. I loved what Bishop taught. The way he taught it was beautiful because it felt very real, to the point. I understood it. I got it. I loved it. It was what I needed. I just focused on me and my son. And oh my God, he was my saving grace. When he was born, he was the reason I quit everything. I quit smoking. I quit everything. And he was my everything. I never knew unconditional love like that before. I never knew love like that before. Babies are life-changing. He changed my life. He saved me. Even though I was terrified, I didn't really want it. I had no idea how I was going to do this on my own. 19 years old. I had him when I was 20. And then I turned 21 a month later. I had no idea what I was doing. I had no idea what my life was going to be like. And then here, the dad has nothing to do with me. I was like, oh my God, I'm living the nightmare that I had always wanted to prevent. And no matter how much I tried chasing after him, he just wouldn't accept his son. And he wouldn't accept me. And he chose that drug life and that world over us. And you know what? I'm so thankful now looking back. So it's crazy how that works. But in the moment, I decided to focus, and I did. I went to church and I loved it. It was good for me. Then I got an opportunity to start working in the bank. I got a job at SunTrust Bank, and that changed things for me. I got to not only work locally too, where I lived, but after a while, I started realizing in the church that I was going to, some of the things about them that I didn't like, which was the typical things about church that I don't like. It's like, they have these expectations of you that you have to participate in this and do this and do that. And then when you don't, it's like they don't want to show up for you anymore. And it got to the point where I got really hurt because I was told that me putting my son first was not putting God first. And I was just like, nah, I'm out. Because my relationship with God has always been very real. He's practically my heavenly father, the only father I've ever known. He's always been there for me, but I'm real. I don't believe that I have to act, be, and live completely a certain way in order for him to love me and accept me for who I am. That's just not the God that I know, because he's never been like that with me. He's always loved me, even when I was the drug addict, even when I was not my best place. He was always there for me. He always showed up. And that's my relationship with him. It may not be what people typically think of when they call themselves as a Christian, which is why I don't even like labeling it. I believe in him. I love my relationship and the way I am with him. So when I left the church and everything, I ended up leaving because I just couldn't take that anymore, on top of other things that went down. But my life still was okay. I was enjoying my bank. I made a really good girl that we became really best friends during that time frame. Then after a while of working, I think I was almost like 5 years later of working there. Within that time frame, I will say one of my bestest friends in the whole world ended up dying in a car accident unexpectedly. I was 22 years old and didn't see this coming. And it was devastating to me, because talk about a person, a woman who absolutely loved people for who they were. She was very real. She was always there. She had the biggest heart I've ever known. Anyone deserved to live, it was her. And it really sucks that happened, because she was so young and she had her whole life ahead of her. And it breaks my heart. And it's hard for me to talk about, because I think about her all the time and I miss her so much. So rest in peace, Morgan. I love you. That was probably one of the challenges I went through with being from SunTrust. And then another door opened, and I ended up going to work for an oral surgeon's office after that. And that's kind of crazy how that worked out. But anyways, in between working from SunTrust before I moved into the oral surgeon's office, my friends at work convinced me to go out with them. And by this point, I had been single for like 4 years. I've been focusing on me and my son, doing good. We went out to a bar, and I ended up meeting this guy. And me and him ended up dating. My friends kind of pushed us into talking, and we did. We ended up talking and connecting, and then we ended up dating. And it's funny because I saw all the red flags, but I was so, at the moment, so excited to finally be with somebody again, because it had been so long, that I ignored it, which is typical, what we can do. He really didn't want nothing to do with my son. My son at the time was about 5 years old, and he didn't want nothing to do with him. He never really invited him. Even when he was around, I could tell he didn't really care for him. And it wasn't long before that relationship started taking a turn for the worse. And I started noticing some changes in him, as far as where we were spending all this time together, where he no longer wanted to really spend time with me anymore. And then what was really hard was, like, every time I would touch him down there in bed to like make a move on him, he would kind of get defensive and get upset and make me feel like all you ever want to do is have sex and blah, blah, blah. And that really actually affected me a lot. because it was yet another form of rejection that was a trigger for me, was something I already struggled with. So of course it brought the worst out of me. He got the worst of me instead of the best of me because of that. And it was not long after that, of course, we broke up. And honestly, I'm not stupid looking back. I think he was having an affair. I'm sure he was. It makes sense. I was probably cheating on me, had met somebody else and was just finding a way to wean me out, whatever. But after him, I actually got introduced to my very first life coach. Her name was Janet Zimmerman. And although at the time I couldn't afford to pay her to work with me, I followed her. I read all her articles. I just loved her. She actually even let me interview her for a college course at one point that I was in, which was amazing experience just talking to her. But she was the one who truly taught me about self-love and the importance of it. And that was such a defining moment for me because I really did take that to heart. I decided to take time off from everything and work on me, loving me, working on the things about myself, and realizing that if I want to attract the right man for me, my soulmate, as I've always believed in, then I need to become the woman who he would deserve, who I would want to be for him. So that's what I did. I went out there and I started working on me. I started doing Zumba. Oh, I loved doing Zumba. That is so fun. If anybody ever has not tried Zumba, if you're like me, I love to dance. I've been dancing since I could walk. Love it, love it, love it. If you are a dancer or like to work out, Zumba is so much fun. So it wasn't long after that I decided finally to take a chance, and I decided to sign up for Match.com. It was about 6 months down the road or whatnot. And I had the typical perspective of how these dating sites go. And oh my God, it's such a, I'm going to be meeting all this bogus stuff, blah, blah, blah. But I was like, you know what? I'm going to go into this thinking I'm just going to get to know myself better and understand more of what it is I want, what it is I don't want in a man, and learn more about myself. That's how I'm going to go about this. And so I did it. And yes, I had some crazy meets. I had some that I almost thought was okay. And then we would meet and be like, ugh, no. And then about a week before my time ended for the time frame that I paid for, this guy reached out. And at first he says, hey, how are you? And I just kind of like, pushed it off. And then another message came in a little bit after that. And it was this long message from him. And he was just like, I just want to say, I'm sorry about my first message. It was very vague, and you seem someone who's more worthy of more. And just pretty much saying that he loved my profile. He felt I'm kind of what he's looking for, and he would love to connect and just get to know me better. He said, please read my profile. And if you feel the same, he's like, I would love to get to know you better. So I went and looked under his profile. And I just remember when I read his words thinking, oh my, this is me. This is me. And it was so intelligent. I'm not going to lie. I judged him. He had these big old gauges in his ears. So I thought, oh, this is some punk guy who's just looking to hook up or whatever. I don't know how I feel. I mean, he was cute, but it was like, I got that vibe at first. But then when I read his words, I was like, oh my, that does not sound like what I'm seeing. So I decided to talk to him, and the rest is history. I mean, I'll tell you more and more about me and him, but what is it? Going on almost 8 years now of being together, 5 years of marriage, 2 kids later. I'm telling you, when you make that decision in your life to focus on what you want and to choose to love yourself, to be real of who you are, and that you're going to go after what you want, come what may, things happen for you. It's beautiful, and it's what I'm all about. And I want to support you all. I want to continue to share more of my story and my journey as I'm learning and growing and achieving. It's going to be beautiful. So if you're interested in working with me, I do have a hybrid program that I offer called the True and Confident You. And in this program, It focuses on helping you to develop that deep understanding of your self-worth. We start with reactivating your authentic self. We have introspective exercises, guided reflection that helps you to learn to recognize your unique strengths, talents, and values. And we cultivate self-awareness so that you gain the ability to make more informed and fulfilling choices in relationships and careers, so you avoid settling for less than you deserve. We work on empowering boundaries and self-love, because it is so important that you do set healthy boundaries, that you do love yourself. So we're going to explore the roots of your self-sacrificing behaviors and learn techniques so you can shift towards the self-care and the self-compassion, because we want to prioritize your needs and your well-being so you can break free from resentment towards others and build a more balanced and harmonious relationships, not just with yourself, but with everyone around you. I want to cultivate confidence and intuition. I want to strengthen it. I want to help you to work on some mindset training and help you to identify what your challenges are, what your fears, your doubts, and give you the tools so you can stand up for yourself, pursue new opportunities, trust your instincts. Because when you heighten the confidence, you become more open to embracing your potential, pursuing your dreams, and living a fulfilling life that's aligned with your true self. I'm here to tell you, you have something beautiful to offer this world, and I want to help you to uncover that, discover it, and then set real goals to help you start working towards that. I want to be your biggest cheerleader until you're ready to be your own. I want to give you the support you deserve, the love that you need, anything to get you going and living the life that you need. So feel free, reach out to me. You can find me on Facebook, Facebook.com/Mary Dibble. You can send me emails to mary@marydibblecoaching.com. However you want to connect, comments, let me know what you're thinking, what you're feeling. If you are a mom who works her butt off and has decided to go after your dreams and have accomplished just that, has created the success that you've always been looking for, then I want you on my show. I would love to have you on here, let you share your story, help you to even promote your business, because I want us to all support each other in this journey together. So again, thank you for listening. Thank you for being a part of my journey. I can't wait to hear more about your journey and help you along your journey. So with much love, Mary Dibble. Take care, guys. Until next time. Thank you for listening. I hope that was helpful and inspiring for you. Here are some takeaways from today's episode. I introduced myself as a 36-year-old mom of 3, a happily married woman, and a life and success coach. My mission is to empower hardworking moms to pursue their aspirations, purpose, and authenticity, emphasizing the importance of self-love and self-care. I share my own journey of overcoming past traumas, including abandonment by my father, and how these experiences shaped my life and behavior. I highlight my decision to focus on self-love, personal growth, and attracting the right partner, which ultimately led me to my current husband. I offer a hybrid program called The True and Confident You, aimed at helping hardworking moms develop self-worth, set healthy boundaries, cultivate self-love, and boost confidence and intuition. I invite you listeners to reach out to me for support and collaboration, particularly if you are a hardworking mom who has pursued her dreams and achieved success. I express a strong desire to create a supportive community where individuals can share their stories, promote their businesses, and help each other along their journeys. My message centers around the idea that everyone has something beautiful to offer the world, and I am committed to helping moms uncover and pursue their true potential. I encourage my listeners to connect with me via email, mary@marydibblecoaching.com, or comment on this episode. And I express my excitement about being a part of your journeys. Overall, my podcast and coaching focuses on self-love, personal growth, and building a supportive community for hardworking moms to pursue their dreams and live fulfilling lives. Thank you again for listening. Until next time, much love.